In the era of Instagram Reels and viral podcasts, the line between aspiration and exploitation often blurs, with few embodying this dichotomy more than Jonathan Dupiton. Known as the voice behind the podcast Rich and Unemployed, Dupiton captured thousands with his magnetic delivery, stories of breaking free from the 9-to-5 grind, and a brand that became a beacon for those craving financial freedom. However, the glitzy facade has cracked, revealing allegations of a $10 million fraud scheme that threatens to unravel everything Dupiton built in the public eye. Dupiton's arrest has sent shockwaves through the community of aspiring entrepreneurs and online influencers who once viewed him as a role model. The allegations, which claim Dupiton and his associates orchestrated an extensive unemployment insurance fraud using stolen identities during the pandemic, have recast the narrative from a story of self-made success to a cautionary tale of unchecked ambition and moral compromise. The Rich and Unemployed brand, a promise of freedom rich and unemployed, was more than a catchy podcast title. It was a movement for many disillusioned with traditional employment. Dupiton's charisma, flashy lifestyle, and motivational mantras painted him as someone who had mastered the elusive game of generating wealth without the tethers of employment. Listeners tuned in for strategies on investments, entrepreneurship, and mindsets required to achieve financial independence. For those struggling in dead-end jobs or seeking direction, Dupiton's words felt like a lifeline, a promise that they too could escape the grind if they followed his formula. But beneath the curated Instagram images of luxury cars, cash stacks, and exotic vacations, federal authorities allege that Dupiton and his network were submitting fraudulent unemployment claims, forging documents, and using stolen identities to siphon millions from programs designed to help those genuinely in need during the pandemic. Exploiting a crisis. How the alleged scheme worked the COVID-19 pandemic left millions jobless, prompting governments to roll out emergency aid programs with unprecedented speed. These programs, however, became vulnerable targets for exploitation as they prioritized urgency over stringent verification. Court documents allege that between July 2020 and April 2021, Dupiton, alongside Kadir Williams, Emmanuel Dupiton, and Cayman Bell, submitted a web of false unemployment claims across multiple states using stolen identities. They allegedly fabricated employment histories and submitted forged documents to access funds meant to support families on the brink of eviction, small businesses facing closure, and workers trying to feed their children. Investigators claim the scheme's breadth extended beyond paperwork. Dupiton's own podcast and social media platforms, where he frequently showcased his wealth, have now become part of the digital trail authorities are scrutinizing for evidence of the fraud's scope and planning. The digital evidence that built the case in an ironic twist, the same platforms that elevated Dupiton to influencer status, are now pivotal in the investigation against him. Federal investigators monitored transactions and cross-referenced suspicious activity with Dupiton's publicly shared images and podcast statements, using digital forensics to build a timeline of the alleged fraud. Posts showcasing sudden spikes in wealth, expensive purchases, and cryptic references to easy money are now being dissected for clues, illustrating how the digital age can turn personal branding into potential evidence. Dupiton's rise under the mantra of wealth without work may have, in the eyes of authorities, reflected more than motivational content. It may have revealed the mechanics of an elaborate fraud. The double-edged sword of online influence. Dupiton's arrest raises broader questions about the culture of online influence and the nature of success stories that dominate social media. Was Rich and Unemployed genuinely an attempt to inspire, or was it a carefully staged front for illicit gains? The influencer landscape is rife with gurus promising shortcuts to wealth, often without transparency. While many influencers operate with integrity, others blur ethical lines, prioritizing clout and material symbols of success over sustainable, honest entrepreneurship. Dupiton's case highlights how the allure of instant wealth, combined with a carefully curated online persona, can attract followers while masking unethical or illegal activities behind the scenes. The cost of image-driven hustle. Dupiton's image, a man unbound by traditional employment, living lavishly, and encouraging others to pursue their dreams, was integral to his success. But as federal allegations suggest, sustaining that image might have come at the expense of legality and morality. The influencer economy's pressure to display success can push individuals to cut corners, embellish achievements, or commit fraud to maintain an illusion. The consequences, as seen in Dupiton's case, can be severe, not just in legal repercussions, but in the irreversible damage to credibility, trust, and the communities influenced along the way. Pandemic fraud and the federal crackdown Dupiton's case is part of a larger epidemic of pandemic-related fraud that siphoned billions from government aid programs, draining resources from those who needed them most. Federal agencies have since escalated their efforts to detect, investigate, and prosecute fraudulent claims, leveraging technology to track digital footprints, cross-check data, and analyze suspicious transactions. The government's use of advanced analytics and digital surveillance in the Dupiton investigation is emblematic of a broader trend in fraud detection. In an environment where online personas are used to project wealth and success, those same projections can become a breadcrumb trail for investigators. The victims, the human cost behind the fraud, while the headlines spotlight the alleged perpetrators. It is essential to acknowledge the victims, families denied rightful aid, small businesses unable to access support, and individuals forced into deeper financial hardship due to limited relief funds. Each fraudulent claim not only drains public resources, but also erodes trust in social safety nets, making it harder for governments to provide effective support during crises. Legitimate claimants often face increased bureaucratic scrutiny and delays as agencies tighten security measures, further exacerbating their struggles. The legal process. Presumption of innocence, it is crucial to note that Jonathan Dupiton and his co-defendants remain innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The legal proceedings will determine the extent of the fraud and the roles of those involved, guided by due process. Regardless of the verdict, the case serves as a potent reminder of the ethical boundaries that should guide entrepreneurship and the responsibilities that come with public influence. Lessons for aspiring entrepreneurs and influencers. Dupiton's story underscores the importance of integrity in the pursuit of success. While the lure of quick wealth through shortcuts may be strong, it often comes at an unsustainable cost. Entrepreneurs and influencers must remember that true success is not defined by luxury purchases or follower counts, but by transparency, accountability, and ethical conduct. Sustainable brands are built on value creation, honesty, and resilience under scrutiny, not by gaming systems or exploiting crises for personal gain. The broader impact and future safeguards. The federal crackdown on pandemic fraud is a step toward restoring trust in public aid programs. Future safeguards, including improved verification, advanced fraud detection, and stricter monitoring, are necessary to prevent large-scale fraud from recurring. However, ethical responsibility ultimately lies with individuals. As Dupiton's case shows, even the most sophisticated safeguards can be bypassed if individuals prioritize personal gain over communal well-being. Conclusion: a cautionary tale for the digital age. Jonathan Dupiton's journey from podcast stardom to federal indictment illustrates the thin line between inspiration and exploitation in the digital age. It highlights the power of influence, the vulnerabilities in systems designed to help those in need, and the consequences that follow when ambition outpaces integrity. Aspiring entrepreneurs and influencers should reflect on the lessons from Dupiton's case, that genuine wealth is not only measured by financial gains, but by the impact, honesty, and legacy one leaves behind. In a world captivated by curated images of success, the pursuit of wealth without ethical consideration can lead not to prosperity, but to downfall, impacting not just the individuals involved, but entire communities in need. As the case progresses, it will continue to shape conversations around online influence, financial ethics, and accountability, reminding us all that in the relentless pursuit of success, there are no shortcuts worth the cost.